Welcome to the One Advantage podcast, exploring the intersections of peer power, culture, and agility. Your hosts, Mike Richardson, Jason Richmond, and Leo Bottari, co-founders of the One Advantage community of practice and advantage peer groups. For more information, please visit us at the One Advantage podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this first episode of the One Advantage podcast. And I'm here with my co-hosts, Jason Richmond and Leo Bottari. And we're excited to be here together and launch this new conversation that we'll be having with you.
Good stuff.
We'll introduce each other in a moment, but here in this first episode, we're going to answer the basic questions of why, what, who, how, where, and when about this podcast. And let's jump right in, Jason. Let's start with why. I mean, why on earth does the world need another podcast about leadership and culture and agility in business?
I tell you what, Mike, I don't think it does need another one. Right? But you know what it does? It needs the right one. It needs a podcast that provides actual, tangible, applicable advice, ideas, best practices to give an organization, a leader, C-level, frontline manager, the advantage to grow their team, the advantage to make their business successful.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and really crucial in these times, Leo. And tell us a little bit more. Why are we calling it the One Advantage podcast?
You know, it's a great question. Part of that, of course, emerged from our conversations with one another, looking at Jason's work, your work, and every one of us, no matter whether we came at it from peers or agility or culture, we all came to that same place, right? We're thinking about that same one advantage.
Yeah.
And it's been terrific, I think, to discover how each of these, there's so many overlapping and, interlocking frameworks for all of these things. And the power of this together in terms of the result it can produce provides that real one advantage for clients and companies, of course, today, when we think about it with respect to how do we kind of move forward in a world of uncertainty.
Yeah, and we're bringing expertise and thought leadership in peer power and agility and culture, and how those three things come together as the one advantage of peer-powered cultures of agility, Jason.
Well, think about that, Mike. I mean, you bring together those three core competencies, right? And in that culture, you're creating a strong connection, a connection of people, right? And when you got a strong leadership team, a strong organization, and they're connected, it drives clarity in your organization.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when you got your organization all clear and on the same and they're aligned, then they're ultimately operating with composure.
Yeah. And let's answer the question, why the three of us? And that would seem to be a good place to sort of do the introductions. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Leo here. Leo and I have known each other for over 10 years. When Leo joined one of my executive peer groups that I was chairing, not least of all because he was on staff in the corporate head office. And 10 years ago was when we first met. And then about 5 years ago, he came in one day and he said, I think the world needs to understand this whole category of peer groups more. And Leo wrote the category-defining book in 2016 called The Power of Peers, and has subsequently gone on to write two more books. His third book called Peernovation, which is all about peer-powered innovation, just got released and translated in China. And so we're really blessed to have you on the team here, Leo. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you so much. And, I've been fascinated for a long, long time about the people we surround ourselves with and how they oftentimes can help us do those little things that anyone can do, but often make us more successful, which what really intrigues me about Jason's work about culture. Now, Jason and I are more recently acquainted, but what I'm so excited about with Jason is that he's worked with every size company, from a Fortune 100 company to solopreneurs and everything in between. And his understanding of culture and leadership and what it can mean to organizations is really just remarkable. And it's just going to be a pleasure to bring all of this together.
Thank you, guys. And I got to say, culture and driving culture through peer engagement really allows us to bring the third piece of this puzzle together, and that's the expert, the subject matter expert, the man on agility, right? driving an agility methodology to any organization to operate efficiently and effectively. Mike has worked with CEOs of every organization for the last 30 years of his career. He's been a CEO himself. I've had an opportunity to partner with him on things the last 3 or 4 years. And I tell you what, Leo, we can't be in a better position to have someone like Mike on the team.
You guys are too kind, really. And so really it is going to be this triangulation that we're going to bring together, and all of our stories and experiences and insights and perspectives around this idea of peer power, culture, and agility. And how do you develop, how do you evolve, how do you drive a peer-powered culture of agility coming together as the only competitive advantage that you can rely upon these days as having any permanence, any sustainability, any relevancy into the future to cope with whatever comes at you, no matter what. That's all you've got, really, Jason.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Mike. I don't know, Leo's probably got something to add on this too, but everybody's been searching, for years and years and years on what's that one differentiator, right? And I think we bring all three components together to provide the one differentiator, the one focus, right, for leadership to drive performance.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here.
Yep.
You spoke to it earlier, though. It is so much about clarity. And part of what Peernovation is all about is having intentional conversations with one another that often don't happen organically, right? It's really about sitting down and talking about what is really important, about what people want for themselves. And that's what's really exciting. And that's what can drive that, strengthen that culture, and make it withstand some of the uncertainties and forces in the external world.
Yeah,
right?
so many times, so many conversations, so many boardroom meetings I've been in, and we talked about vision and mission and direction and values and strategy and business plans and alignment, that clarity and that alignment. There's two different things. Everyone can say that they're aligned. It needs to go to the next level of clarity. Right? They need to be really clear on what that alignment is, what it means. There's a difference there.
And leaders have to own that clarity.
That's right.
And we talked about this earlier today about how important it is for leaders to recognize that when it comes to receipt of their message as intended, that is 100% on them.
Yeah.
And it's really important to really take ownership of that and recognize that. And the more that leaders do that, the more they can create the kind of clarity in the organization that you're talking about.
So how does the peer process, the peer power, how does it get you to that place of clarity? And then, Jason, we were talking today about commitment and how culture and developing and evolving culture with intention deliberately can get you to a place of that ultimate commitment that you're looking for.
Yeah, my work over the last 20 years in regards to culture evolution, culture creation, starts with having common purpose, right? And it's one thing to have that common purpose, to have it on your walls, to have it on billboards. It's another thing for the organization really to be committed, to be motivated, to be inspired and engaged with that purpose. And that's what's driving the level of engagement of employees. That's what's driving the satisfaction level of your workforce.
Yeah, and then when you combine the clarity and you combine the commitment and you do all the other things you need to do for agility, you can really arrive at a place of feeling composed. I like to talk about agile composure in the face of all of this crazy disruptive change coming at us all the time. We can still be sort of quietly confident, calm, cool, and collected, composed, that it'll be okay. It'll be better than okay. We'll actually find opportunity inside of these disruptive trends coming at us.
A lot of important C words here.
Yes, indeed.
Confidence, collected, composed, culture, clarity, confidence.
And we'll get into a lot more, I'm sure. And so, Jason, tell us a little bit more. I mean, who's this podcast for? Who are we hoping to create some value for here?
I would say this podcast is for any leader within your organization, any business owner, any C-level person, but even the frontline managers that have the influence of their people. In my world, regardless of the size of the organization, whatever industry you're in, the people we're working with, that frontline level leadership team, they have the biggest influence in the organization. and they've got the ability to voice the opinions up and to drive the culture messages down. And I think this podcast is for anybody that has the ability to influence organizational's culture and direction.
Yeah. What would you add to that, Leo?
Just that, there's so much focus in organizations today about its vertical structure, right? Your senior VPs, your directors, your managers, and all that. And the reality is that what runs horizontally through your organization, it gives that vertical structure strength. It's recognizing that you have a lot of employees who may not have the fanciest titles, right? But they have a lot of influence among other employees.
That's it,
and
influence.
I think getting them involved and making sure that they own that purpose, they own those shared values, really becomes key.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Leo, tell us a bit more. What kinds of things are we going to be doing in this podcast?
Well, first of all, I know we're going to be interviewing a lot of really terrific guests, that we're going to be really seeking out people out there who can really add value to this and not only talk about what to do, but how to do it. And I think this is going to, I believe, differentiate this podcast from so many others where, it can kind of be easier to kind of point out those things about what has to happen. But I think to really crawl into how we can make that possible, I think that's going to be a real differentiator.
Yeah, and I tell you, I can't wait for you to share more and more and more of your experiences. You've worked with so many organizations now. You've spoken to so many peer groups about how to take their performance as a peer group to, a really high performance level. So I can't wait to hear more of your experience and your perspective and your expertise in particular.
Well, and think about the big finding here too, right? Is that these peer groups have been around for business leaders for a long, long time. And what's amazing is what the highest performing peer groups do so brilliantly can really be brought to the teams in your organization. And it's really remarkable to see that happen and see it in action.
Peer-powered culture of agility. And the culture part, Jason, I can't wait to hear your experiences. You've worked for so many years with so many organizations on learning and development and talent management and development and all those kinds of things. It's going to be great to hear your stories.
And again, sharing examples and situations that leaders have gone through, mergers and acquisitions, how to bring in different types of cultures together, how to form high performing cultures, and talking about some of the differentiators, some of the similarities. I mean, we spend a lot of time working with organizations on things like authenticity and being deliberate and leading with trust, right? Those types of things, and teaching people, talking about how to do that, like Leo said, instead of just what to do.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be about, folks, here on the One Advantage podcast. And this won't be the only place that you can get your inspiration about the One Advantage. We will also be having a webinar series. We also have the One Advantage daily news feed, a newspaper. We, of course, have the One Advantage community that you can join us in, inside of which we have Advantage peer groups. And there'll be so many more things coming all around this concept of the One Advantage that we've been talking about. And so we're going to have some fun. We're going to do this a couple of times a month. It's going to be a mixed bag of storytelling from us and from others. Jason, what else would you like to say?
I just want to say it's going to be a wild ride in 2022, Mike and Leo. It is going to be a lot of fun. And the main thing is we're bringing our audience a lot of value, and value based on things that they can actually take back into their environment and apply.
Yeah. Leo, what final words?
Just the great thing about the community is not just a passive learning experience. You get to get involved. You get to really stick your hands in the clay and work with all this content. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. So that's it, everybody. We'll be talking to you again next time. Come check it out.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the One Advantage podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider helping us by rating us wherever you listen, spreading the word, having us as a guest on your podcast or webinar, and mentioning us in social media. Find us at the One Advantage podcast, where you can get more information about us and this episode. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to more great episodes to come.